illiterate. And then I read the Bible, and then I left the Hebrew Israelite Church.
Jesus belongs to Africa as much as he does to Europe and Asia. And Jesus was not a white man like me, nor was he as black as some of you. We don't know what the color of his skin, but it must have been a dark color like the people of his day, because he was a man like them. Don't ever say it's a white man's religion or a black man's religion. It's a world religion. He belongs to the world. Jesus belongs to Africa, to Europe and Asia. Jesus belongs to the world.
Sir, I don't use Strong's Concordance. I teach Hebrew. See, I'm sorry. Strong's Exhaustive Concordance is not an inspired source. It's very dated, and I'm sorry, but anyone who's dependent upon that is going to stumble many, many times. It's just, I just highly recommend to you actually learning the language. It would help a lot.
God has answered your prayer. You said, why doesn't he send the Spirit of truth? He did. He sent Jesus. And when Jesus left, he sent the Holy Spirit, according to John 13 through 15. So what you're asking for, God has done in the person of Jesus. And guess what? How did the world receive Jesus, Sonetta? They didn't receive him. They crucified him. And if they could, a lot of them would crucify. God has answered your prayer. He says, why doesn't he send? Done it. And that's the beauty of Jesus, is he's saying, you deserve judgment. I'll take the judgment. So the Son takes the judgment that we all deserve. That's the beautiful thing, Sonetta, because none of us can pay for our own sin.
To the world.
How many roads? Too many signs, I can't read them. Wouldn't recognize the turn even if I seen it. Been driving all along, feel like I'm dreaming. Okay.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Street Apologist Live. I'm your host, Vocab Malone. This is a show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. I'm a Christian counter-cult specialist and urban apologist, and today we're reviewing a brand new book by the largest Hebrew Israelite group, IUIC. Their leader's name is on the front of this book. Not sure who exactly wrote all of it, but it's called Biblical Events from Assyria to America. And then underneath it says, Correcting His Story to Include Our Story. Really what this is IUIC is attempting to replace the classic, and when I say classic, I mean within their religious framework, book by Rudolph Windsor called From Babylon to Timbuktu, with their own new book that has some tweaks and revisions. If you've read the book, call in. If you're aware of the book, you can call in, and me and Jesse will talk to you. That's our co-host today, Jesse Walsh from The Reassembling. Welcome to Street Apologist Live. Great to have you with us today. Okay.
Grace and peace, bro. Grace and peace.
Yes, indeed. Tell people how to subscribe to your channel and what you do over there, Jesse.
Yes, sir. It's an absolute pleasure to be here again. One of my favorite YouTubers of all time, Vocab Malone, by the way. We are the voice behind Reassembling. We take the time to deconstruct our doubts and reassemble our faith, firmly rooted in Christ, of course. You can find us on all the digital landscape, TikTok, Clapper, YouTube. You can find me at jesse.walsh.4090 on Instagram, as well as Jesse Walsh on Facebook.
Excellent. Okay. We're going to get right into this because there is a lot to cover. So first, I'm going to show everybody how this is sort of, for lack of a better word, going around. And so here is the book, and recently it was released. I don't remember exactly when this came out. Do you remember, Jesse, exactly when this came out?
Ooh, very recently. I want to say last month,
possibly?
2 months ago. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Could have been last month.
And it's Biblical Events, Assyria to America. Well, from Assyria to America. Correct history to include our story. Fourth book release
for our story
by Bishop Nathanyel. That's what it looks like. You can get it at all those places. IUIC shouldn't be too upset at this video because it kind of acts as a commercial for the book itself. You know, we're giving the book promotion.
Yeah, basically.
I mean,
and cool cover. I like the cover.
Yeah, I believe that's supposed to be Hannibal. That's
Hannibal. That's Hannibal Barca. Yeah.
That's a Hannibal with an I after the A, if you know what I mean, because you got a
Hebrew Hebrew Hannibal.
And then all the deacons and the officers are getting the book. He has his, and they've been posting this around social media. I got mine. Now, I think we have it on Kindle, so I don't know if you can physically hold up a copy, because it's like $35.
I got the digital one. It's 50, like 50 for the hardback, right?
Yeah, and I imagine it has a lot of pictures and stuff like that, so I'm not hating. I just... that digital's kind of the way to go in this situation.
I would say it's this one. It's just like this, but thicker. I mean, yeah.
Well, this is a hardcover, though. If you see, it's a hardcover.
Yeah, they got the hardcover one now.
The book really ultimately kind of reminds me of a sort of like a middle school history book. If I had to sort of put the genre that's in. And that's a cover. I made it look pretty cool there, actually. You know, with
fan fiction. Yeah, that looks good. Looks good.
Now, honestly, I think the title should have just been from Assyria to America. I think that would have been a
more catchy.
A little more streamlined, and they could subtitle it however they wanted to. Yeah. But we're going to take a look at this. We've got screenshots. We've got highlights.
We've got lots of stuff.
Bookmarks. We got lots.
Too much stuff.
And lots of stuff. But first, let's look at how AI graded this. Jesse, can you walk us through AI's grading of the new Nathanyel IUIC book?
Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, when we're looking at, I mean, the first thing when you open it, it's an Assyrian. It should be an Assyrian record, right? You think a historical book, it has the word history on it and has the word Assyria on it. You think it's going to be any kind of ancient Assyrian records, because we do have those. But it's very weird. The very first page when I opened it, it's he's got Salmanezar IV taking Tobit into exile, and you got like Sennacherib being the son of Salmanezar. So he's got the whole timelines of, you know, the Assyrian family tree, just kind of a mixed mash of the. It's not what in actual history or where any of this came from. So as far as how I graded that, it is based off. See if I can put it right here. So based off its book, there's a lot of information here, but it's basically the structure of the book itself. And we're not, before we can get into the content, I think that's the good place to go. You start off with the actual, what is this we're looking at? So I ran it through the machine, okay? And it talks about obviously the lack of academic structure. There's an absence of a clear thesis, poor chapter, and this is all broken down. If you just stop me anytime, vocab, if you want me to go into any details on this.
I'm grabbing my copy from Babylon to Timbuktu real quick. Go ahead and walk us through it, man. Go ahead. It's on the screen.
Yeah, so there's no introduction or methodology in the sections. No conclusion. The style, it's a style over substance, really. Informal and rhetorical tone. It's the lack of citation of footnotes, and if you're trying to do a historical book, it's the single most disqualifying element in terms of academic reliability. Is you need to have citations. You need to explain the sources you're using. But then it goes into the actual writing of the structure of the book, and it talks about the overuse of bold, italics, capitalization. It says right here, the book is typographically aggressive. Emphasis is provided not by logical argument, but by excessive use of formatting. So bold text, all caps, italics, and underlining are frequently used in the same paragraph. These are more like rhetorical crutches, substituting typographic volume for analytical depth. The grammar syntax errors, there's a lot of that. Then there's the abuse of the sources he's actually used, and we're going to go through the list of all the sources he uses. So the misuse of Josephus, we're detecting the machine is AI is detecting Wikipedia sources. No peer engagement. There's anachronisms. It's filled with anachronisms. Time periods blend together. Fictionalized timelines when he adds, Tobit to the Assyrian family tree timetable. There's no use of historical critical methods, so involving the source analysis, contextual interpretation, and the application of the linguistic and archaeological data. None of that is evident here. So Nathan basically is cherry picking verses from scripture, which they always do. And when I read the first couple chapters, it's almost as if they took a IUIC classroom and just recorded it and turned it into text and slapped it in a book. So there's an absence of cross-referencing. It treats the Bible as both a history textbook and a prophetic playbook, yet it doesn't compare its claims to archaeological evidence, extra biblical records, or linguistic analysis. There's no effort to test its interpretations against other plausible readings or historical records, and that's what you want to do. You want to have a balanced view. If we're going to be talking about ancient Assyrian, we needed to have ancient Assyrian records. Then we look at the peer review. What does it say? What are the arguments against my assertion? Stuff like that. So it's lacking all this stuff. So it's basically the conclusions drive the data, conspiratorial thinking as default. It has a lack of editorial oversight. So check this out. So typos, errors, there's no formatting consistency. So the title chapter changes. They change its font size, and if you read it on the Kindle, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, you can literally see it goes from one thing to the other, and you're like, wait, what? It's
an interesting transition from chapters. It's and this isn't nitpicking. We're not nitpicking. It just signals that the manuscripts likely kind of you know. I like to say it was precipitated rather than edited, like Erasmus, So there's no index, no glossary, no supporting tools. Real historical books aimed at public education or scholarly conversation. They often include indexes, glossaries, appendices to help readers navigate complex ideas. This book offers none. It isn't designed for careful study, but rather emotional acceptance. So the conclusion, as I was just running this through AI, and I asked this, and this is all the information. If anybody needs this information, I could turn it into PDF. You guys can get the structure analysis of this. And we're not even going into the context because I didn't ask it for context, but its conclusion on its structural piece, it's a structural mess. So it says, in summary, biblical events from Assyria America is structurally incapable of being taken seriously as a historical work, not because of its content, but because of its form. It fails to meet the minimum requirements of historical writing: coherent organization, methodological transparency, clear sourcing, citation discipline, academic tone, engagement with opposing views, and editorial quality. So we're going to go into it.
Yeah. Real quick, I see a comment a little bit off topic, around the world in 80 days, but I will respond to it because I know what you're talking about here, and maybe I can provide some insight. He says, just saw a viral video of a large group of men screaming about Yahushua at kids' parents at a playground. What that is, so I saw this video before it went viral, and I was like, oh, this might go viral because it's so sort of outlandish. What it is it's at ISUPK's Passover. Their 56 Passover that they just had. They say it's 56 because they're going back to 1969. Understand?
They're going back.
And so with ISUPK, it's them because of where they're at and the fact of the way they dress. If you notice, they all have on black. And I saw it presented on social media sort of in racial tones, which I didn't think was helpful at all. That's why I didn't really share any of those videos I saw. And they weren't even directly trying to engage with the people at the playground per se, although I could understand why people might think that's what's happening. They were doing their kind of standard exercise in the public parks that they do, except they had a lot more people there because it was during Passover, and then they're just doing sort of some of their chants they do. And ISUPK, obviously, if you saw that and didn't understand it, it could be quite a sight, no doubt about that. But
for sure,
they're just there to do what they do, and they use public spaces. And so I don't know if I would
man.
say that it was sort of intentionally harassing anyone, although I could understand why someone might feel that way if they were there and had no idea what was going on. But that's what that video is. It's UPK doing their thing. Okay, so AI graded it. Now let's take a look before we get into the content, because we have slides of the content of the sources of the book. So I think I got the right screen up here. So
I hope that makes sense, vocab, about the actual structure. Just what is it?
Yeah,
I think that's important, to actually look at its structural, see if it's structurally sound.
Yeah, that's why I started with that, and I'm glad that you did that with AI. That's good work, Jesse. Okay, so now we're looking at the source list, and so we're sort of starting with the elements around the book before we get into some of the details of the book. So this is pretty epic how Jesse was able to do this. He was able to go through and look at the source list by chapter, meaning what do they cite and what do they say? Because here's the thing. No one at IUIC is a professional historian. No one at IUIC was alive 2,000 years ago. Now they think they were. They think they're reincarnated, but even they don't think they remember their previous life. So what's my point by saying that? Because neither are Jesse and I. So the point is, that means you have to cite primary sources or reliable experts and authorities to be able to demonstrate the point you're making. You can't just nakedly assert it. This book is basically one giant naked assertion. You have some things copied in from a lot of public domain material, a few things that are, I guess we're going to say a little more up to date. For example, there's one book in there from 2020, and you have one book from 1967. But you're going to have a lot of problems with not just the lack of sources, but the way the sources that are there, the way they're employed. So let's go through, and this is really just basically what I would call an objective analysis. And I want to know, live chat, can you see the PDF that's on the screen? I want to see if you guys can see this as we look through this. So again, thank you, Jesse, and chime in if you want. I'm gonna look at some of this. I'm not going to read every word. It's on the screen. You guys can screenshot it if you want. So the Bible, now my guess is if IUIC is going to review this, let's just say they did, in their mind they'd be like, look, even AI knows that we're keeping it real with the Word of God because it says the Bible is a primary source. I imagine they could say something. We are the scholars, But the thing is, when you're dealing with stuff that's outside of Scripture, because they're doing all kinds of stuff outside of Scripture, then you can't make the Bible the source for stuff outside of Scripture because by definition it's not in the pages of Scripture. That's where you would have expert scholars and historians come in, but they just have these sort of unnamed expert scholars and historians a lot of times. Or sometimes the vague notion, the phrase will sometimes be used in the book of old and rare books. They literally talk about books that are designed for white eyes only. Now, they said that was their own camp internal lingo. And what they meant is these were books designed not to be able to show us, but to be able to show people back in the day. Only white eyes. By the way, everyone's eyes are white.
Yeah, good point. But it's the first slide is going to prove it all once we get into it, why these assertions can be made, the global conspiracy. But I like what the AI did. It did break it down by the source, and it also references how it's used. So when you have a source, you have a primary source, a good source. People can abuse primary sources. Yeah, it's a good source, but what are you really putting them in context? So if they're not putting the Bible in context, do you think they're putting any primary scholar in context, let alone a secondary or a pseudo? So it's the mix and mash of all the things. It's one chain of thought, and that's what the structure found. It's just one flow of thought in this book.
So even things like, you really can't trust, even like, for example, they list Assyrian kings, but they don't tell you where they get the list from. They do cite the Story of Civilization, which is Will Durant. Now, he's sort of an anti-Christian writer in a way, 20th century British writer. Caesar and Christ. It is a well-known book, nonetheless, dated, obviously. But even that they misuse. And of course, from Babylon from Babylon to Timbuktu,
of course,
which really is the one West, and almost every Hebrew Israelite's what they lean on for their understanding of history. And what this book is that IUIC's produce is an updated, expanded version of this for the 21st century for their camp specifically. So there's things changed because they don't agree with Windsor on everything.
But he's not even citing Windsor correctly. That's what's kind of disturbing. So we know Windsor is pseudo, but how is he taking Windsor out of context? Because we get into that. It's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, Rudolph Windsor is someone that they interviewed. And, Windsor doesn't even believe in the New Testament. He doesn't believe Jesus is Messiah. That doesn't mean necessarily what he writes is wrong or incorrect, but obviously they have different presuppositions there. After being an accurate description of the regions of Egypt, Barbary, Libya, John Ogilvy, 1670, I have a PDF scan of that book, and it's written in that old English. It's pretty difficult to read because the PDF is not a text PDF. It's the actual images, so I can show you that. And by the way, they make a big deal and say these things are difficult to come by. Literally, if you Google in that title, you'll literally come upon the book immediately on the first page of results. It'll be a digital version, but what do you expect? It's from the 17th century. It's not difficult to find. Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. This is a pseudo book, John L. Johnson. That is only 4 years old. That's available on Kindle for, I think, $6.99. Then you go to so it's breaking it down chapter by chapter. Chapter 2, you guys probably already knew you would see this. The Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. This is from the 60s, the original printings from the 60s. And this is something that's very important. Although they really only use the Ham entry, they don't really utilize entries on Shem or Japheth properly, or Ethiopia or Esau, meaning entries that would contradict what they believe.
Of course.
And then, of course, you have the Apocrypha, the Land of the Heart of Livingston. This is a missionary. This is talking about David Livingstone, a famous missionary. And this reverend wrote a book about the land of his heart, which is about where the Bantu peoples dwelled. 1920. The Persian Mede captivity, you can see right there. You do have the Jewish Encyclopedia cited once.
Jewish, huh?
Yeah, they'll use that a lot because they'll say, look, even they know the truth and they admit it sometimes type of thing. You have some old Spanish Roman Catholic sources, which obviously you're going to be looking at translations when it comes to that. Antiquities
Second Ezra and all that.
You can have Josephus. And then you also have, oops, I went backwards. I went the wrong way. Sorry about that, folks. Let me go the right way. Okay.
I believe they're only using the Jewish Encyclopedia for Arzareth, but it's a Catholic understanding. Yeah. That's what he said. That's what he's sourcing there. The Columbus situation. They believed it. Second Ezra 13. They
literally say you need to watch the movie 1492, and you'll see proof of it. And this is interesting. AI. Look what AI said about this. The Bible is cited. This is in reference to chapter 4. It's at the very top of the screen there. Cited but allegorized to support racial and geopolitical claims. It's fascinating that AI would make that point. It's fascinating.
It's a great tool, I'm telling you. A lot
then
of people,
you got Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 11, Chapter 8. Look at the way AI categorizes this. Misuse. Josephus does say Alexander visited the temple, but not as proof of Israelites ruling or being dark-skinned, meaning they're misusing the source. And AI is able to pick that up. It's so unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
And then you have European Concepts, 1492 to 1729. This is the book
that's available. Got a British Israelism in there.
This is the book that's available on something that I have called Perlego. Perlego is a digital book service that sometimes academic institutions have that'll have books that are commonly assigned, for example, in class and different things like that. And so being in seminary, I have this book by Huddleston. It is an academic book, but it's not about proving their claims. It's about different theories about Native Americans throughout the centuries. And it is an older book on this. There's been a number of updated books on this exact subject. 1967. It is an academic book, though, but it doesn't support their claims. He's simply reporting on what people thought. And so it's interesting what it says.
There's a lot of that going around.
Yeah, academic, but used to validate fringe claims. Example given, Issachar equals Native Americans. Yep. And then you have the colonial era Catholic missionaries. And it's funny what it says. Verdict: historically selective and reinvents colonial pseudoscience as racial prophecy. That's exactly on the nose. And I have some blogs
right on the nose what it's doing. Yeah,
about this on my my Substack. I have a couple blog posts that are about the Hebraic Indian hypothesis. Chapter 5: Roman captivity, Roman history, heavy allegorized, and then. Heavily. this is interesting how AI caught this. Look at the second bullet point. Identifies Rome and later NATO as fulfillment of Daniel's fourth beast. Of course, you got the United States thrown in there. And verdict. Notice AI is analyzing a chapter called The Roman Captivity. No credible Roman historian is cited. Allegory turned into racial identity theology.
Zero. There's a lot of the chapters where he skips. There's just no citations. It's a lot of name dropping. He'll name drop in a whole chapter, but never cites anything they use.
And that's different than citing. And what if they were going to straw man this, which is all IUIC does to their critics? They would say, "Oh, they're not respecting what we do because we didn't cite European sources." And we never said that. We're asking for primary sources or sources by excerpts, regardless of who they are. And the thing is that they try to do this when they think it's in their favor, but usually they're incorrect about it. Look at the verdict from Chapter 6. Blurs real anti-Semitic history with false claims of Israelite ancestry in West Africa and the Americas. Chapter 7. And it gives examples.
It knows.
Huh?
It knows. It can pick it up.
Yeah. Look at Chapter 7, the verdict. Modern leftist critiques of Zionism are repurposed to imply the U.S. and Israel are part of a spiritual conspiracy against true Israelites. Truer words have never been spoken. That's exactly what they do. Summary of misused sources. Rudolph Windsor, credibility, pseudo-historical, used to claim Hebrew identity of Africans and Carthaginians. That's the weird one, and that's what's on the cover. Josephus, credible, used out of context to support race-based prophecy. Will Durant, credible, taken wildly out of context to support Hebrew Carthage. Zondervan Dictionary, semi-credible, because it's not really an academic Bible dictionary. That's why. Twisted to racialize ancient people. Pedro Simeon of Medina, obsolete, speculative, used to claim Native Americans are Israelites. Reverend Gormley, missionary bias, used to justify Bantu Israelite theory. Now, they use it for that, but the thing is, I'm going to show you the Gormley book. He gives several theories about Bantu origins. He's not saying this is what I know it is, and they just take one part where he says, here's a possible theory, and act like that's what he was saying. It's so dishonest. In fact, I feel like
confirmation bias.
Yeah, I feel like let me just show you that now. Because while I'm saying it, and if you could comment, Jesse, because I know I've been mainly the one speaking there.
No, you're good. You're good.
Could you comment while I bring this Gormley book?
Well, he's quoting Josephus, and they like to do that as a strong suit. We're using the actual scholars and sources. I don't think they knew about Josephus until apologists start coming around, but. Josephus, he wrote to portray Jews positively to Romans. He was sympathetic towards the Romans, not to just document every migration. So his Egypt reference that Nathanyel's using was about Roman-era Jews, not 10-tribe Israelites from 722 BC. But what Nathanyel did is he took the story of Alexander meeting the high priest, and that's an apocryphal view. While Josephus says some Jews fled to Egypt during Roman wars, he never said they became Bantu Africans or they founded West Africa kingdoms or whatever he's saying. So he's literally twisting Josephus into racial migration that he never proposed. So it's the sleight of hand, the twist. You can kind of pick a sentence. We don't take the whole context of the person being quoted. How dare we?
Yeah,
a lot of that going on.
It's dishonest, but if you haven't learned how to read sources, if you haven't engaged in that type of thing, then you could be tricked by this, especially if it comes from your trusted, vaunted leaders. So here's the Gormley book. Now, it's not hard to find. It's an old book, but it's all over. You don't have to go to some black market. It's right there on an archive, and you can get it right there. So here's Reverend Gormley's book, and I want to show you the table of contents. This will be very fascinating to you. By the way, if you are watching this video, would you please click the like button or please support the channel. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. That doesn't cost you anything, does it? And also, if you could leave a comment and just tell us if you like this, ask us a question because we need some engagement. More people should be watching this because this is important stuff. We know it's not the latest gossip, but this is the latest book. And what's happening is we have a cult evolving right before our eyes. We should pay attention. So this is how the book that they're citing as proof of their concepts starts. Monument erected over Livingston's heart. Chitambo's Crow, Rhodesia. All right, that's important. So there's the full title of the book. Study the Bantu tribes of Africa. And look at this. You see this? with special reference to the agencies which contribute to their civilization. All right. So this is a missionary of the Free Methodist Church, and he writes from South Africa. They had a training school there for missionaries, and this is a common thing that they do. And I love how this starts. This is the heart of someone who is for God's glory all over the world.
Right.
Unto him that loved us and washed us from our sins in his own blood. Oh, that's so good. Amen.
Amen.
But they don't even believe you need that because if you're an Israelite, you get in no matter what. Okay, so this is a book that they use. We're going to skip the introduction by C.A. Stoll. Notice how we're actually showing it to you. There's the preface, which is prefatory there. Now, look, here's what I needed to show you guys. This is the book that they're using to justify the idea that Bantu are Hebrews. Okay, you guys see this? Now, what I want to specifically show you, I want to specifically, especially show you chapter 3. It's in Roman numerals there. Hypotheses, notice it's plural, concerning the origin of the Bantu. The Bantu refers to a ethno-linguistic tribal designation or ethnic people group. It's multiple peoples across multiple places. So when you say Bantu, it's referring to a people group, but also can be referring to a linguistic group because of the Bantu expansion that happened earlier. There are peoples who may not be ethnically Bantu originally, but may speak a language that is Bantu. But notice the Negro hypothesis, the Neolithic hypothesis, the Egyptian hypothesis, the Lemurian hypothesis, the Semitic hypothesis, Arabic, the Semitic hypothesis, Israelitish, coincidences in religion and customs, coincidences in language, Hebrew, and Zulu Bantu. Now, look right under that language, the cliques as appearing in the Zulu Bantu. Okay. Does this look like he is giving some kind of proof or evidence that the Bantu are Israelites? He is showing here are some of the theories that people have about this people group, and notice how many there are.
It's quite a few.
Are you guys seeing this?
So, he's just basically saying some customs could have been shaped by interactions with Jews, with the Semitic through migration or trade. That's
and he refers to it as coincidences. Coincidences here. We have an ex-Hebrew Israelite in the live chat, my man Reno James, and he says, now he's an old school Hebrew Israelite, so he would know. He says this is exactly what Yeshaya and ICUPK, he's using the old name, ICUPK tribe, with the Amazing Facts book in the 90s. By the way, someone has that Amazing Facts book, and they sent me a picture of it, and they said they were going to send it to me. I don't think it was you, Reno. I can't remember who it was or what social media platform it was. They inboxed me and showed me the front picture, said, I'll send it to you. What's your P.O. box? Where's that book? I really want that Amazing Facts book because someone had it, an ex-Israelite, and they were going to send it to me. I'll pay the shipping if you send it, whoever it is. Thank you, Dinu, by the way, for sharing the link to the Hebraic Indian hypothesis that I put out. Everyone subscribe to Reginald Wells. He's in the live chat. And Jim Green.
Grace and peace, bro.
He's in the live chat as well. And shout out
to Raven Lynn. Raven Lynn in the chat.
D-New, and of course, the one and only Nate 2D2. Okay, so notice how we're not just making jokes. We're not just like saying, here's this book, and we're actually showing you an overview, and then we're showing you the sources behind the sources. Now, you can find this as well, what I just showed you. So I want you to understand this is a deep dive into this, showing you why it's problematic and dishonest. Now, I don't think that people who watch
abusing sources.
I don't think people who watch this channel would be fooled, but I could see somebody who doesn't know how to handle sources properly perhaps being fooled. But don't let that be you. Shout out to Jim Green for the super chat. Thank you for the first and only super chat. Okay, so
I'll just say, looking at it, it looks dated. Like colonial religious in tone, you know? Then you see that it's the secondhand theories of cultural speculation. How do we not understand the source? Knowing the source, what you're reading is one thing. They read anything. It's like they can connect Deuteronomy 28 to your taxes. It's like, I've seen it done before on their lives. It's just this, any genre of the Bible, any source type, we don't know what kind of source this is. This is what area of the world is this from? It's all nope. It's part of Scripture. It's like an add-on to Scripture. You know what I mean?
Well, you gotta think about it. It's not like it's the most common knowledge information that missionaries were often looking for theories about the backgrounds of the people that they were interacting with. And so were, in general, colonialists and Europeans as they sort of discovered new places. And so people may not understand that this is part of a lot of speculation going on in general during the age of exploration. And so when they see this, they're just like, they're not familiar with that, and so they could be like, "Whoa, look, they knew this back then. They admitted this is true."
They're digging in the crates and finding this stuff. Yeah, and I did a show about the northern tribes, what happened to the northern tribes, and we talk about the colonial era, medieval kind of understandings and folklore and stuff. So knowing the time spans of history and timetables, it's very important too. And we're kind of just touching bases on this kind of stuff, but it's gonna be thorough.
Yeah, so if you notice in the introduction, we're going back, so we're looking at an AI analysis of the book, that a new IUIC book that's said to have been written by Nathanyel, called Biblical Events from Assyria to America. In the beginning, it says, esteemed historians know this and agree, that type of thing. And it names these esteemed historians. Carter G. Woodson, that's the father of Black church history. And by the way, he went and visited...
I don't know all the sources. I don't know everybody.
He went and visited William Crowdy's people after they did their thing. And Carter Woodson did not believe in the Hebrew Israelite claim. I can tell you that right now. You just got to read his notes of his assistant who traveled with him. And I have that book on the shelf. I've shown it before. John Henrik Clarke, he's a pseudo guy that the conscious community loves. These are not legitimate. Same thing with J.A. Rogers. Ivan Van Sertima, you'll hear them say that a lot. He's got the name sort of memorized, but they don't really cite how it proves it. And a lot of times they'll just name the name. Francis Cress Welsing, Yosef Ben, that's Dr. Ben as he's called. Sam Kestenbaum, who they actually cite in this book, they include one of his articles at the end. If you read Sam Kestenbaum, just search this, Sam Kestenbaum, Kestenbaum, and then put in Yosef Ben Yohanan. He proved that Dr. Ben's degrees and background about what he said about himself were all lies. And it's really wild. Sam went and visited him while he was at the end of his life, basically, and put this on blast. And it ended up, I think, in the New York Times. And you can find that article, and it's a big deal. It was a total takedown, and a lot of the conscious community, including Hebrew Israelites apparently, are not aware of this. But it just shows what a fraud he was, because he was teaching at a school based upon fraudulent credentials. He mentions W.E.B. Du Bois. He does not agree with their thesis. Kwame. No. Windsor does, of course, to an extent, but that's to be expected. And that's why it even mentions about, Dr. Ben, controversial figures known for pseudo-historical views. And then it breaks them down even further, like in chapter 1. Look at this. Will Durant.
This is interesting. Yeah.
Durant is quoted out of context to bolster claims of Israelite presence in Carthage, which Durant never states.
Nope.
Rudolph Windsor. Misuse claims that Carthaginians were Israelites, but Hannibal spoke Hebrew. No peer-reviewed historian supports this. Meaning you can't just assert that. Where's the proof of that? John L. Johnson's The Negro Rulers of Scotland and the British Isles. Pseudo-historical work with no academic standing. Cites alleged secret inscriptions or bans on black literature. No verification.
No verification. Yeah.
And
isn't that crazy? It's a long list. He's citing them, but he's citing them out of context or not at all, or out of context. 10 times out of 10. I mean, the only thing he's sourcing is Bible verses.
Yeah, but they're of course.
And then the run-on sentence after that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Spanish Captivity, Chapter 6. Misuse modern newspapers, The Guardian, to imply Jewish global control. Refers to Catholic iconoclasm and expulsion of Jews, Spain, 1492. They try to make the Inquisition and iconoclasm all about this idea of black Israelites in Europe. It's just all lies. It's not the historical context of it
An ethnocentric. Yeah.
Oh.
Everything has to have an ethnocentric twist to it, you know. Historical revisionists. That's what it is. That's what they are.
Yeah, and so I just ask you, if you read this book, you say, okay, here's the claim, step one, because the first thing you need to understand when you're understanding an argument is what's the claim, and then two, what's the evidence. That's what you need to do. And if somebody would have done this, it really would have helped. Really would have helped, but I don't
Look
think
at
that was
chapter
done.
5 though. The Roman captivity. Look at all this taken out. The Roman captivity. Where he directly connecting Rome to NATO. To NATO. Sure. What a leap, right? It's not the Dragon Beast system, it's really just Republican Democrat.
That's bizarre. He tries
So
to
weird.
interpret the Bible to say that it predicts the Republican and Democrat two-party system.
That's what it says.
No joke. When I
Says
heard
it
it,
in
I
there.
was like, "Wait, you can't be serious."
He's got
Josephus.
Trump's inaugural speech in there. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was odd. I was like, "Why is Trump's inaugural speech in here?"
Why is this in here?
Because if someone says, "Oh, you don't understand," no. If you read this book, it's literally just they'll have something they cite without any bridge. Again, this is
Nothing.
not how you use sources. If this was turned in as a term paper, even
Fail.
at a decent high school, this would get a low grade. This would
is-
never pass any serious college muster, because you're not allowed to just dump a citation without explaining how it functions in the paper. And they constantly just dump something without explaining. There's no transition, and it literally will be a cut and paste. Again, especially at the end, it gets really bad. It's almost like, okay, we got to finish. Let's just.
It's like we're running out of ideas. It kind of gets lost and it's kind of scattered towards the end. You notice that too?
And if you don't believe what I'm
It's just,
saying,
like, random.
download the book on Kindle. You can buy
$4.
this and go to the end chapters. You'll see, you don't need to take my word for this. We're trying to tell you what's in here, but here's why this matters. This is not just to make fun of it. What happens is members buy a book like this, and they will not read it. They may scan through it, look at some of the pictures. I seriously doubt most members will read as much of this as Jesse and I have and run it through AI to analyze the structure and
right,
do all
just
this.
look at it, yeah.
But it's almost
really
like,
analyze it.
look, here's the proof. Here's the evidence.
The prophet's back on earth with the book. It's a treasure to them. They probably haven't even opened it. It's sitting on the bookshelf.
It's sort of
just
a
looking.
coffee
It's like an
table
idol.
version of From Babylon to Timbuktu. This is like coffee table Israelite apologetics, really. So some major problems there. Rise of Christendom, 1890. I have that book as well downloaded. It's right there by Edwin Johnson. So they were acting like these are like difficult to come by. No, they're really not. Chapter 6, Spanish captivity, and it mentions the 17th century figures as if they're arguing what they're arguing. These are early colonial theological guesses, not based on anthropology or archaeology, because they were trying to figure out.
Vasquez.
See, you got to understand, before evolution, let me explain this to everybody, why this was happening, this 17th century guesswork. Before evolution became sort of the credible, I put that in quotation marks, thought about people, here's what happens. People thought that even if they weren't Christian, a lot of people in the West thought that the Bible's general history about people was accurate. That means, in general, they thought at one time there was a monolingual world that's prior to Babylon, and that there had to be one source or one fountainhead for all of humanity. That would be Adam and Eve. By the way, they're right about both of those things, because that's exactly what happened. Because of that, when they came upon new people that they were not aware of prior to that, their thought was, where did these folks come from? And because the rediscovery of Israel and or Jewish peoples embracing the gospel, whether it was Catholic or Protestant, because they had different understandings, because they tied that in with an eschatological framework, a lot of times it had to do with the return of Christ or the incoming kingdom, meaning by the Jewish people accepting some version of Christianity, it would hasten the day of the Lord. That was a general thought with a lot of people's eschatological scheme. There was also a desire to find lost Israelites. And so this wasn't just done on the American continent, the African continent. This was done wherever the missionaries and colonialists went. You can find this type of material. It's very frequent, and it's there. And so this is part of it. And they take these old speculations without any of the context and say, look, they were on our side. And then you crack open the book, And sometimes
Yeah.
it's just like a missionary saying, here's some of the theories. You understand?
Yeah.
So now look at the way that they talk about this other source that I mentioned that is an academic source. It's dated 1967, Lee Huddleston's book. It is academic, but he's explaining debunked lost tribe theories. So they misuse him. Huddleston presents the theories as curiosities, but Nathanyel, or whoever wrote this book, he presents them as proof. Do you understand the difference? So if you cite the book and you don't understand how the author's intending it and you act like it's proof, it's dishonest.
Dishonest. They're abusing the source.
But, I mean, the sad thing is, that a lot of people won't look into this. That's why we're doing this now. If a person who believes Nathaniel and IUIC and they click on this, instead of sloganeering and just saying, you can't stop the movement, just check out what we're saying. You may say, too long, I can't check out everything. Just check out some of the things, and you'll find that we're right. It's that simple. Real quick, a couple super chats I want to get to before we get too lost in this, because I see a couple super chats I haven't acknowledged yet. I do appreciate every single person for the super chat. We got Jim Green, and like I said before, you definitely want to subscribe to his channel, In Context, the opposite of what IUIC does. He does good work there out in Cali. And Yosef Dalian says, I admit, I think they reach a lot to connect the dots. And are you yourself a Hebrew Israelite practitioner or a follower, Yosef? Let me know. I'll be curious if that's the case. And have you read this book? What do you think about it? We also have DMG. How can Hebrew Israelite doctrine reconcile its talk of exclusive lineage without falling into the Eurocentric historical revisionism it claims to dismantle? I'm not sure if I'm understanding this question, my man. I want to help you because you're my friend. How can they reconcile without falling? I'm not sure what you're saying, but here's the thing: is this book is historical revisionism, although it's historical revisionism from a One West perspective. This book attempts to be sort of a history of the world, in a manner of speaking. I mean, you got China in here, they got India in here, from a One West perspective. So basically, if you watch that old documentary in the BBC back in the day with Louis Theroux, and he goes in and Yeshai is telling him all this stuff, this is that same type of sentiment just brought into the 21st century and put in a book form to make it seem credible, primarily to encourage, I think, believers who were already there that, look, we have the proof. Look, our leaders know what they're talking about. They dig into the old books. And so the second they hear that a book's from the 17th century, they're excited. But the question is, are your leaders properly using it? And we're showing you that the answer is no. What were you going to say, Jesse?
Yeah. I was just going to say, when dealing with One West, we got to remember, we had British Israelism for a long time. So they are recycling the old arguments, but putting more toner on it, if you will, just changing the skin tone of it. But they use a lot of 17th century Catholic conjecture, and we've known this through the stuff they're reading, 20th century Afrocentrism, and then cherry pick scripture. So when we say they need Eurocentric scholars to find the awakening or whatever he was saying, it's built off of British Israelism. A lot of the arguments are, the more you
the hodgepodge of sources, and there's no consistent methodology, and the use of sources is bad, and that's what we're showing here right now. So, for example,
sources, a lot of outdated stuff. Yeah.
They give some examples here from the AI review. Let me show you some examples here. What is iconoclasm? See point 4 there. Iconoclasm was primarily a Protestant thing, where they said, look, these Roman Catholics have been using images in connection with their worship. We don't believe that's the way to do it. And look at all these statues and all this saints and all. So iconoclasm was either removal or destruction of the images. But what these guys try to say is, oh, look, they're getting rid of black images. However, if you see examples of damaged statues and paintings by that iconoclast partially destroyed, you see it wasn't a bunch of black Israelites they were destroying. It absolutely was not. It's just a lie. That's not what they were doing at all. And we know, and we even have ancient images where people would draw pictures and then paint them of iconoclastic parties. And the iconoclastic parties got out of hand because what happened is we'd have some Protestants who may be convictional Protestants who said, we need to remove this stuff out of our churches. Rome put this here, but it should not be here. So let's melt down the gold, for example. Let's burn the pictures. But what would happen is sometimes it wouldn't just be done by sort of, hey, the city council said this needs to be done. This is legal action. It was done sometimes by mob violence, sometimes. Not all the time, but this did happen. We can't deny it. And so drunken hooligans would come in. They would be like, hey, we're burning some stuff out of a church building. Let me join in.
Yep.
So it got out of control. No, that's not a proper iconoclast because they're not principled. They're just joining in sort of destruction and vandalism. But these things happen. My point is, though, we know the background and we can see pictures and images, obviously not photographs. And this is not what it was, is what they're saying. In fact, a lot of stuff they would have been destroying would be images of sort of European-looking biblical figures. It's just a lie. And if I was a British Israelite, I could misuse that fact, you see?
Oh, you can run with it, of course.
They're asserting that European Christians are destroying Black Hebrew images and rewrote history, but no primary source or iconographic studies are cited.
Nothing.
It's just
and they're missing the fact that there was a Byzantine background of icons as well, you know. But the whole theological canon, it wasn't about realism, you know. It was about depicting divine truths, not physical features. And you look at the actual art form itself. We can quote all the art historians we want until we're blue in the face. It's all ethnocentric, you know. We're talking about
conspiracy theory
across history.
Is more appealing, I think.
Right. It's easier. It's you're emotionally invested. It's not about the liturgical style of the Eastern Church, and that you got to learn the history and understand what you're really looking at. Gravitate towards race, and
This is funny. AI analyzing chapter 7. The Bible was a key source used, Deuteronomy 28, for example, and it says misused. Interprets prophecies about ancient Israel to refer to the transatlantic slave trade in the U.S. Constitution. No exegetical method is applied.
Wow.
Now, this is what
Getting smarter.
If Gedaliah would do this, he'd be like, they're saying we didn't follow the cemetery rules of the white exegetes. No, we're saying what AI is saying, that what is the exegetical method, meaning how do you get this from the source? They don't ever show it. It's not based upon history. It's not based upon grammar. It's not based upon context. It's literally based upon assertions that their cult leaders taught them that they're passing on now. And then when they even take newspapers like The Guardian, article.
Yeah, that's
quote,
crazy.
Pro-Israel groups planning to spend millions in U.S. elections. Credible journalism, but misused. Instead of political analysis, it's used to support a divine conspiracy between Zionism and American racism.
And leftism.
And this is crazy. They caught this. Look, accurate quotes, but used in contrast with Deuteronomy 17:15 to suggest civil rights leaders were in rebellion against God. Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. Already note as selectively quoted, claims Ham is not the father of the Negroes, thereby implying African Americans descend from Shem and are Israelites. This passage has been widely criticized for racial essentialism. It's crazy AI can pick all this up, but here's what's interesting. Look at if you have this, look up the entry to Shem and tell me, does it say the progenitor of the Negroes, since that's what they're getting from the Ham entry? Or
by default,
go to Japheth, what's it say? You're going to have problems because it doesn't say that. Look up the entry to Esau or Edom. Does it say anything about them being white? Look up the entry to Rome or you won't find it because it's not agreeing with their nonsense. Even that section, Nefertiti really showed what it was all about and was based upon a racist concept and ideal. And how do we know?
Talking about that.
Because if you read this, one of the entries supports the curse of Ham hypothesis. Problematic.
Would you say so? It's basically that entry and Gentiles is kind of the only time that's used, right? Usually, let's look up the word usually for Gentiles, right?
Yeah, they like that. They like that one too when you go there. Yes,
I love the usually. Yeah.
So here's an overall analysis AI does of the way the book used sources and tells you exactly what happens. And I think it's crazy that AI knows to say Will Durant, respected historian, but he was cherry-picked and twisted.
And AI doesn't have a bias. It's just a machine. It deals with the data, and it doesn't have a bias. So it's very, very interesting how it picks up on that.
So you guys see all this. So there's that. Now let's actually show you some slides to actually show you.
Version.
We're going to actually show you some quotes from the book. Real quick, first, let me take a look and see if you guys have anything you want to comment in from the live chat. Yosef says, yeah, meaning he is a Hebrew Israelite, because I kind of picked that up, but not with them or any camp. Totally different doctrine. You had me on before. Okay, well, it's good to talk to you again. DMG says, my bad vocab. I wanted to say so-called Eurocentric revisionism, but I couldn't fit it all in. Like, for example, King James is really black, but now they're doing the same thing. That's all I meant. Yeah, but they would just say that I guess the difference is when they do it, maybe is that it's true or something like that. Maybe that's what they would want to say. Interesting. Okay, let me see here. Bada boom, bada bing. Just looking through some of these. Shout out to Truth Defenders, a.k.a. Taco. Man, how you doing? What's up, brother? Who else we got? Okay, here's an ex-Hebrew Israelite who used to be in IUIC, my friend.
Cool.
And honestly, when I was part of the Hebrew Israelites, I was blinded to look at the sources. I just believed. I wish I looked up the sources prior. It would have saved me some burdens. Well, brother, we're glad we're with you now. Nas, I agree that IUIC is not a part of the body of Christ, but so-called blacks, natives, and Hispanics are from the 12 tribes. That the discussion should be had, not using IUIC as the face. Well, the thing is, though, if you think that Latinos and natives are part of the 12 tribes, you're relying upon something that wasn't invented until the 70s or 80s, which is our revised 12 tribes chart. And so the question is, why would you want to rely upon that? Why would you think that that's accurate? And IUIC is just promoting that. Now, maybe you don't agree with some of the other stuff, but at least, you know, we got some good agreeing here. And so I appreciate that. That's good. Okay, now let's take a look at some actual quotes from the book itself. We're going to actually look at some quotes from the book itself. These slides. Unmute our mics though, so it's just the image on the screen here. Okay, here's what it says. Give me a 1 if you can hear me and if you can see this clearly, everybody.
Let me see the text. Hopefully the text you can read it.
It's from page 7, Assyria to America. A collective group comprising individuals, organizations, government entities, and religious organizations, includes the Vatican and World Council of Churches, the United States government, her European allies, the Anti-Defamation League, AIPAC, the Canary Mission, Southern Poverty Law Center, major publishing companies, the school system, and of course the media, made a solemn promise to impede our ability to awaken to a deeper understanding of our spiritual essence. That is a quote from the book. Now, Jesse, why did you pull that one out?
I just thought, I like how he kicks off this book he's just alleging all these groups. Isn't this crazy? The United States government, the World Council of Churches, the ADL, the AIPAC, the Canary Mission. We know why they made that piece on them, right? Why not throw the DMV in there? I mean, that's just that any alphabet organization is plotting against them. But that's how he's opening up his book. You know, But what's interesting, we have all these separate groups. If you're the theory of logic, you look at all these separate groups, you know, the Vatican, they're over here. What are they doing? They're having issues with their own cardinals. They're trying to keep the Catholic faithful. They're trying to be convinced Mary never sinned. AIPAC, for example, is focusing on lobbying U.S. foreign policies. The Anti-Defamation League, or isn't that what it stands for? They're fighting anti-Semitism. Southern Poverty Law, they look to designate hate groups, plural, to say they're all in cahoots. It's like this evil global cabal that's trying to keep IUIC specifically, you know, tied down, buried 6 feet under. It's like IUIC. It's just ridiculous. But
what's interesting about this is it literally encompasses the whole world. This is like, and it's almost dumb. Well, why do I say almost? A collective group comprising individuals. Look, a group made up of people. A collective group, organizations. Like, why even have that in there, right? Government entities. So if you're reading this and you don't analyze this, you're just like overwhelmed. Like, whoa. Religious organizations. So organizations and religious organizations includes the Vatican, World Council of Churches, as if this is the primary thing on any of these groups' mind. The United States government, her European allies, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL. The ADL's main target isn't even the Hebrew Israelites. They mainly go after, because the ADL in general is sort of a left-wing organization. They tend to favor when they go after so-called right-wing types.
Yeah.
They do not spend as much time. I'm not saying they never will cover them, but that's just not their primary focus or aim. And how do I know? I talked to one of their experts in this, and it was at a presentation here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was obvious from his presentation. They literally had one slide on the Hebrew Israelites, and it was a massive presentation, and he literally skipped over it in less than 30 seconds. AIPAC, the Canary Mission. The Canary Mission is just simply a watchdog social media site that says, look what they're saying. It has
what
nothing
do they do with the Vatican? What the earth do they have to do with the Vatican?
Well, they're not saying the Canary Mission has anything to do with Vatican.
Well, they're saying they're all in this.
Yeah, all of them are in cahoots
plot,
together.
They're in this blood oath together to take down the Israelites.
SPLC,
kind of thing.
major publishing companies. If that's the question, how did any of the books
how did he
get out?
Publish his book. So his book's on Amazon.
The school
they're against
system,
him,
and of course the media. You can still get books like Hebrews to Negroes on and the movies on Amazon and all this. So
yeah,
it's
you can get all that.
Assault to impede our ability, a solemn promise. A promise to who? And it's like there's no evidence for this to awaken a deeper understanding of our spiritual essence. It's just classic cult stuff. Now
There's a. Oh, go ahead.
Page 93. I'll read it. I'll let you explain why you chose this one. The population of Carthage was derived from Palestine, and its civilization was Hebraic in origin. Hannibal spoke Hebrew. Hebrew tribes of Asher and Zebulun were in Carthage from the foundation of the city.
All right. Yeah. So Hannibal spoke Hebrew now. Isn't that wild? So he quotes it from Hannibal, whose name literally, you know what Hannibal's name literally, it's honoring the Phoenician god Baal, Hani Baal, grace of Baal. That's what Hannibal means. So he's somehow also lighting menorahs and reciting the Shema in a war tent before crossing the Alps. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't know. Rudolph Windsor, he misused the source from Rudolph Windsor, right? So he talks, if you want to pull that other slide up, should have them in order. The the breakdown. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that. So here's the sources he's using. I think that's important because he's. I like how it's set up because it just kind of it shows where he's. Windsor. He is obviously not a historian, self-publisher, amateur, whose book is full of broad generalizations, no scholarly citation. Nathanyel uses Windsor as if he's quoting Josephus. Windsor loosely suggests some Jews went into Africa, and from that, Nathanyel pulls Carthage was found by Israelites. So he's basically, Windsor's intent was to trace a speculative migration of Jews into West Africa. What Nathanyel does is he retrofits Phoenician Canaanite settlements like Carthage into Israelite colonies using zero primary sources. It's almost like he's doing even worse worse generalizations than Windsor.
Yeah, because Carthage, it's a Phoenician settlement, not an Israelite colony. It's just, why do you have to lie? You know, if you want to believe in your religion and you want to say God told you, or you got a funny feeling, okay. But just lying and then saying that everyone else is lying who doesn't agree with you? Come on, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Nahum Schlauss, early 20th century
Jewish scholar,
never said ancient Carthaginians were Hebrew-speaking Israelites. And so he was just showing that medieval Jewish he was just documenting medieval Jewish diaspora movements. But he rewrites ethnic history, Nathaniel, or whoever the author of this book was.
Yeah, he takes Nathaniel. So he grabs the word Jew that Nahum uses and basically runs a theological 40-yard dash with it. You know, that's what he does with sources.
He'll insert the word black in front of wherever Jew appears to make you think that's what it's really saying, but it doesn't.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's wild, man. And then you say it so many times, his followers are going to be like, yeah, that's just the way you say it now. That's just how we talk, you know?
It's just
You're literally
dishonest.
changing definitions. Yeah.
Then a book we already talked about with the 17th century, John Ogilvie. Scottish translator, publisher, cartographer. That means someone who made maps. Reporting what people claimed, not what was historically or ethnographically verified. And I just showed you that. So this shows you that AI gets that right. Notice I showed you earlier in the live stream the table of contents of this book. So that's very important. Ethnographic has to do with sort of studies in the field with and about a certain people group. And it's just lies. But Nathanyel takes it and acts like it's a smoking gun proving Carthage is just Israel 2.0. I don't even understand how proving Carthage was supposed to be an Israelite colony actually proves that the folks in America would be Israelites. It doesn't even connect.
I guess you have to get from one point to another, and I guess he's trying to build his case so poorly from Assyria to America without. I don't know. What is that what we're doing here, Nate?
Yes.
Is he trying to? Okay, so we know Carthage, like you brought up, is a Phoenician colony. It's settled by the Canaanites of Tyre and Sidon, modern day Lebanon. You know, how do you? So you worship Baal, practice child sacrifice.
They would just say, well, people lost their stuff and stuff. But the point that's begging the question, you got to prove who it is. So we've mentioned this briefly before, iconoclasm. By the way, this is an AI-generated image. Iconoclasm is, this is how they define it. Iconoclasm is the rejection and destruction of black religious icons, images, or monuments typically for religious or political reasons. If you did not know what iconoclasm was, if you did not know, you would actually think that they were defining what iconoclasm is known to be.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
This is not what iconoclasm has ever meant to anyone.
Ever.
And it's not what it means now. But if you didn't know, Assyria to America, page 265, defines it in a way that is not true. It's just like, bro. This was pretty cool.
I have the whole list. I have the whole list of all the styles, how it works. Yeah, I do. Like I actually made icons out of Nathanyel just to give him give him his props.
So Nathanyel, or the author of this book, references iconoclasm without dates, making it totally not helpful, to say the least.
There's just no dates. Yeah, you got to date things. If it's vocab, it's a history book. Why would you not put dates in there?
Yeah, seriously. And the author of this book tries to paint, pun intended, medieval destruction of religious icons as some kind of coordinated global bleaching campaign to whitewash black Israelites out of history. But what's funny is then they'll point to, like, say, Moses the Black or Marquise, ones that actually did exist. And it's like, look at this image. Well, if iconoclasm was trying to get rid of black images, then why do these exist still? You know, it doesn't make sense. It's just a lie.
It's just a lie.
So here's the actual iconoclastic periods in history. Byzantine iconoclasm, 726 to 787, and then 1814 to 842. That was by Orthodox Christians who were arguing about the legitimacy of images. By the way, the iconoclast to write, you shouldn't be using images, regardless of what they look like. Then Protestant iconoclasm later on, done by reformers rejecting Catholic idolatry. But he takes the presence of European style of art and concludes erasure. History shows art reflected the local artist's context, not a covert ethnic cleanse. Art historian David Freeberg writes in The Power of Images, quote, iconoclasm was never about racial suppression, but about the power and fear of the image itself to mediate divine presence. And that's really what the debate was about. And you can even see that in the councils where they discuss iconoclasm. A lot of people don't know iconoclasm was actually outlawed for a while, which was a good thing. But it's a good thing because these images are not part of what the Bible prescribes for divine worship, but later on it came back, unfortunately. So there's some examples, actually quotes from the book itself. We are showing you what the book literally says. So,
and would you put yourself in the context of people that were dealing with these icons? I guess we're coming from centuries. You know, the church history builds upon itself. There's different things that happen. It depends on what century we're talking about. Maybe it was the idea of, you know, how the monks or the monasteries was kind of this second generation coming after the persecuted Christians were going into hiding, the secluded lives. We're going to live calm, peaceful lives. You know, we're building upon that, and we're venerating these saints. You can see how these things can snowball and turn into false doctrines. We get that. But having a balanced view of history, a balanced view of the world is something IUIC, they look down the quarters of time, make everybody an Israelite, which is insane.
All right.
So out of reality at that point, you know?
So this book is essentially a Hebrew Israelite work of historical revisionism. And I believe, Jesse, you've got a review that you're going to put up on Amazon so people can see your review of this.
Basically what it is.
And I think it'll be helpful for people to read your review. But yes, it's like this book. We mentioned this before, but in your review, I'm looking at the review right now. Revelation 13. Okay, that's an apocalyptic vision from John the Revelator.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But they take it as a coded critique of America's two-party political system. It's Democrats and Republicans. That's what they actually say Revelation 13 was about. And then Daniel's prophecy of the four kingdoms. It's not Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. It's Babylon, Persia, Greece, America.
America. Yeah, John had that in mind. Missiles, and that's where they get the whole that missiles were there, and the thermonuclear destruction. That was what John see. He couldn't describe it, But I think what's interesting is that those last 2 pages in the book. Want to pull that up?
Yeah, we'll get to that. I actually can show it on Kindle in a second. I'll show it.
Okay.
So if you're wondering what's the essence of this book, I would say if you look at the title, From Assyria to America, that's sort of what the essence of the book is. It's trying to say that before you had people arriving in America from Europe, you had Hebrews who came over here because they knew about Assyria, which is quoted and confirmed, they would say, in 2nd Esdras as America. And it was confirmed by Christopher Columbus. And you can watch 1492, the movie, for confirmation. By the way, this is really what they're arguing.
This is their argument.
And so this is what the book is basically about. And by the way, this is exactly what the Mormons say.
It's pretty
happened.
close. It's part of a broader...
I'll show you a picture. Go ahead. I'm going to grab my Book of Mormon.
I was going to say, my analysis of this book is basically, it's just it's a broader surge of identity-driven pseudo-history. And it's kind of, and at this point, they're trying to supplant themselves with scholarly discourse. They're putting on that front to say, look, we're the scholars now. And plus, with the growing popularity in the urban communities and among online people, it makes it more critical. It's getting more critical to analyze and expose, because a lot of these things and the sleight of hand, all these sources to really follow behind them and say, hey, these guys know what they're talking about. I'm not. You got to do the diligence and look behind them and see what they're actually doing. But to the untrained person who's the lay person, you don't have to be a professional scholar or historian or something. You really got to kind of do some homework behind them to see what they're talking about. But to someone who's already accepting to these fabricated folklore tales, and then you feed into the victimhood, and then you direct the anger from without, and it's us versus them kind of thing. So you have all the components to keep the control. But now that they're kind of falsifying this history, they dress it up in this biblical language. So now in 2025, their followers are like, man, these guys have been in the truth for so long, and now they're supplanting themselves as scholarly.
So here's my Book of Mormon. If you open it up, it shows this idea of Lehi and his people arriving in the Promised Land. But what's the Promised Land? It's America. It's actually got pictures of it, okay? The Book of Mormon has paintings of this. And this painting right here by Arnold Freiberg, it says Samuel and the Lamanite Prophecies. And it has a picture of ancient Israelites fighting in an Aztec-type background, if you notice that. And then, of course, they've got their white Jesus visiting the Americas, because I think that's how I heard about the gospel. This is all in the Book of Mormon, what they already have been teaching. And then, of course, the way this record was preserved to us is when Moroni established the golden plates and had that.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of that. Now, Mormons have written on this. This is a former Mormon who's Simon Sutherland, and he knows what he's talking about because he's got a PhD in science and specializes in plant science, specifically specializes in molecular biology. It's called Losing a Lost Tribe, Native American DNA in the Mormon Church. So this isn't written to debunk Hebrew Israelites. It's written by a former Mormon that shows how science and other things debunk the Mormon thesis, but this book would also debunk Hebrew Israelites in regards to Native Americans. So these ideas have just been ripped off. Now here's a more scientific version, Origin of Native Americans.
If you will.
Cambridge University Press. This is a good book. Gets a little heavy reading at times by Michael Crawford, but if you want to see what we're talking about at a deeper level, now these 4 books I'm going to show you here in a second These are books that are about these theories, and these are good books to help document this, and they're really good. This one is called Old Canaan and a New World, Native Americans and Lost Tribes of Israel by Elizabeth Fenton, New York University Press.
Interesting.
Great book, and it really breaks down how this operated. Then you have, of course, the 10 Lost Tribes book, A World History. It gives very interesting examples of this theory, because it's not just people in America that claim to be Israelites. It's everybody all over has been claiming to be Israelites.
A lot of people,
everybody wants to be.
Mm.
This one is by on Cambridge as well. The Myth of the 12 Tribes of Israel, New Identities Across Time and Space. Andrew Tobolowsky, good book as well, scholarly book.
Mm.
And then this one only has a couple chapters on it, but it gets into the missionary stuff, and it's really good. It's called Hebrew in the Bible and America, and that's by Shalom Goldman as far as the editor. So there are books about this, so we're not just making this stuff up. But
trying to stop the truth, yeah. Yeah, you know, medieval Jewish travelers. I mean, the earliest we have is Jewish communities kind of speculating, and then we get into the medieval Jewish folklore ideas. Presser John made it kind of popular with Crusader hopes and stuff like that. We're ushering in the second coming missionary. So it depends on the context of how these ideas came. And but to represent them, why not represent them correctly? You know.
Yes.
Yeah, so
this is not a historical work. This is One West fan fiction in regards to
fan fiction
history.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm going to bring up the book itself on first I'm going to show the PDF, but it only shows some of the pages, but we'll look at some of them, and then I'll show it on Kindle. Let me see. Oh, that's the wrong slide. Hold on, just give me a second. Okay, there we go. All right. So this is chapter 1. We're going to show you some what we're talking about. And there's a table of contents.
Rather interesting.
Yeah. By the way, you know what's interesting when they say stay in the spirit? You know what they're basically saying? Like stay in the law.
Stay in the law. Yeah.
Because the spirit is the spirit.
Holy Spirit is the law.
Yeah. Memo: all dates are at best approximates. This book is for the serious disciple of the Lord. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Starts with a German philosopher.
Yeah.
All truth right here. I didn't research behind this, but look at this. He says the German philosopher stated all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. Well, what is the German philosopher talking about? Okay, he's not. They like what they're saying right there, and I'm gonna use that for my book. Wow.
Yeah, my guess is the way this actually came to play. My theory, if you see here, it says Deacon Ithon, is that when Deacon Ithon got in trouble a year or two ago, some of you guys don't remember that, but I don't need to go into that. But when he got in trouble, Nathanyel was like, we got to sit you down for a while. You're in trouble. But
he's the scholar.
I'll tell you what, I need you to finish this book. I need to write a book that's history told from IUIC's perspective. But here's the thing. You're not going to be present or visible for a while. You're going to be working on this book, but you're going to have to put my name on it at the end. And
Gladly,
that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's what he said.
I think something like that is what happened. I think something like that. And so shout out to Ithon or whoever wrote this book.
I got you, Bishop.
He's like, he was just glad to be still included in the fold, you know.
The end is definitely an afterthought. I'll give that. Yeah,
I could see Ithon might have assigned some of the chapters to his children or something, and they finished the end of it. So
use it crayons to color it in, yeah.
If you look, this is what we were talking about. Remember we mentioned how they just mention these people have significantly contributed to the field of black history and academia. Rudolph Windsor has not contributed to the field of academia or a proper black history. And remember we were talking about where the conspiracy theories are? It's right here. Our identity has been systematically altered to race and even desecrated through acts of iconoclasm. You see what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
Government entities, blah, 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 blah. This collaborative pledge aims to restrict our access to information that may illuminate our spiritual identity and significance. You know what's interesting? IUIC is the group that limits people's access to information.
Sure do.
You know?
They sure do. Yep.
That's the real truth. This is crazy, though. You know?
Yeah.
So, So this is how the book starts, and you can see, like, wait, where's the connection here? Where's this going? Well, this is how it starts, and we're just giving you a taste of it.
It's like, almost like the first 3 chapters. It seems like it's going somewhere, and all of a sudden you turn the page. Babylonian captivity. Okay, well, how did we get here? Doesn't matter how we got here. We're just here now. And then, boom, you're in Roman captivity or Greek captivity, whatever. It's not Persian Mede captivity after that. Does not transition at all. I mean, even for a good read, say if it's all pseudo and it's all false, let's at least make it coherent and flow. Where's the flow to it?
Yeah, this book needed about another year in development, I think. So maybe they'll watch this show, you know, whoever the editor is at IUIC, and they'll be like, you know what, good points. The AI actually raised some good points. So
I'm sure they won't.
Let me go ahead and let me make some adjustments. I could see that. I could see that. Okay, so here's the Kindle book on the screen here. Oh wait, oops. No, it's not. Wait, where is the Kindle book on the screen? Okay, it's been down there. My bad. Okay, well, that's the review there. Let me get it on the screen here. Okay,
so AI images in there. Yep.
Any particular things you want to look at on the Kindle?
Yeah, I mean, we're running through it. Assyrian captivity. I mean, we touched on the family tree, but it's so out of. It's just so wrong on history. You figured it would be. If it's talking about Assyria, why wouldn't it be why would not the Assyrian records be accurate? And there's not one Assyrian source in this book, but you come from Assyria. That's my biggest argument for IUIC. You're coming from Assyria to America. How? Demonstrate with the Assyrian records themselves. That's your biggest chance of succeeding at bringing your thesis.
All right. So now we're in the book. We're in the book itself. And here they're citing Bradley's work, which I have over here right beside me. And notice as it gets cited, do you see the word Holocaust that's highlighted there?
That's ridiculous.
What do you notice about Holocaust?
Oh, page. It's in parentheses and underline.
It's a quotation mark, as in Holocaust. You guys see that? That's how they got.
That's ridiculous.
That's
the so-called, everything's a so-called.
So-called.
So-called didn't happen. Are there
and
deniers?
Look
or they
down
just...
here. The essential point is that these Ashkenazim, the Jewry of Eastern Europe, and the prime victims of the Holocaust, were descendants of Khazar tribe people.
Yeah, another Khazar argument. Oh my. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
The large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, it should be R, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin.
Because I say so.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the book. And look, they cite Syrian president now deposed, Bashar al-Assad. There is no evidence 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust. The U.S. financially helped the rise of Nazis between the two world wars. They cite Assad for their Holocaust denial.
Al-Assad.
And he says...
That's crazy.
This is crazy, man. Like, what? Assad, the historian.
Converts from... Yeah.
You guys can see how the type setting and the fonts are different. They change throughout the book.
Yeah, now we got Los Angeles Times, television, Nick Cannon. We go from that to Nick Cannon and Whoopi Goldberg apologized. That was a...
Yeah, that had to be in there. Bizarre.
It had to be in there. It's like almost, the one thing they forgot was the Putin revealing the icons. You didn't see that in here, though.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Right.
Here's the Kyrie Irving story. Remember, they marched at the Barclays Center. Kyrie Irving shared a documentary claiming that Jews had fooled the world into believing that they were God's chosen people, including by fabricating the Holocaust. The documentary actually said black people were the real biblical Jews. So I don't know who wrote that sentence because they're trying to correct an article. The documentary and the corresponding book by Dalton, who we had on recently,
Ron Dalton,
because he had Nathan galloping away on his horse. It did engage in Holocaust revisionism and denial. It does say what it said there. That's true.
So just straight up lying.
Yeah, so I don't.
The book that they once endorsed. What was this? 2016, 20? No, a little later, right? 2017 at the Barclays Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're backing up Ron Dalton then.
Yes. Okay, now I have a couple highlights in here that I was gonna show. Wait, how do you do it? I forgot on Kindle where you look at your own highlights.
I should be in one of those.
Oh, okay. Here's annotations. Oh, okay. Here's my annotations. Okay. So there's where they cite Windsor. I just showed that as an example. And this right here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is important. This is their commentary on the Zondervan's entry for Ham. I want to show you what they say here. Not about not the entry itself. That's not what I'm trying to show you. I'm trying to show you guys
exegesis of it.
No, the lie that they have about this conspiracy theory. Listen to this lie that they have about a conspiracy theory. Okay, I'm going to highlight it right here. You guys see this?
Mm-hmm.
Unbeknownst to the general public, there has been a racist campaign by apologists, Christians, to remove this Ham definition from the Zondervan dictionary. These same racist Christians will soon claim Zondervan's is not an academic work. My gosh, this is such a dumb
racist
lie. Christians. I'm going to show a few things of why this is a lie and why it's dumb both. Okay. So number one, okay. There is no campaign to have this removed that I have ever been aware of. The closest thing that ever happened to this is when Kelly Richardson, Hebrew Israelite pastor, he emailed Zondervan himself to try to get them to prove that his understanding of the Ham entry was correct. They emailed him back. He showed the email as evidence that what he was saying was accurate about the entry. The email did not say that. Just like everything, he misinterpreted the email itself. Nefertiti, God rest her soul, did a response video analyzing the email and the entry itself and showing how ultimately it came from a racist place, which essentially identified the descendants of Ham as beast without saying it. And she gave the primary source evidence. That's why the Ham entry should not be used, because it's simply left unsaid who is the progenitor of the so-called, as the word uses in the dictionary, Negroes. So this is a lie. This is more conspiracy theory stuff. IUIC will never do this, but show us the proof or evidence that there's a secret campaign and that the campaign is racist. Nefertiti, you guys may not know she was black, first of all. Her family, all right? And she was the only one. And she didn't even email them. It was Kelly who did it. She just did a live stream about the email that he shared. That's the only thing I ever know about that. What do you mean? If you mean that we have called into question the Zondervans, like you're supposed to analyze sources, that's different than a racist campaign to remove it. And notice just putting the word racist in front of campaign doesn't make it racist. But there is no campaign. And look how dumb this is. Apologists, Christians. It has a parentheses, which would denote ownership. So that apostrophe shouldn't be there.
The typos are in there, man.
It shouldn't even be there. And also, it's Christian apologists, not apologist Christians. This book is not academic. Don't let anyone fool you to think it is.
Grammatically speaking,
and it's not just the Zondervan dictionary, it's the Compact Bible Dictionary. These same racist Christians will soon claim Zondervan is not an academic work. Now, notice how even AI mentioned that because it's outdated. It's published in 93. This is an update, but it's from the 60s. And it's always a lay book. Look how small this is.
There's other dictionaries. They act like that's the only dictionary that exists. Why do they act like that's the only dictionary that exists? It's insane.
Well, we already know they like that one entry. But then look what it immediately transitions into. Have you ever noticed the Christian Bible movies? Hold on.
What?
Most Bible movies that I'm aware of weren't even made by Christians. Like if you go back to the old movies, I don't even think they're made by Christians.
Ten Commandments.
I don't think
No.
CC, what's his face, is a Christian.
Secular
to my
Hollywood.
knowledge. So why are they saying Christian Bible movies? But it's dumb that it literally follows after that.
Right after
and then
that.
it
Isn't that
says
weird?
portray white people. The Bible characters are white. Now that's true. A lot of them did that, but what does that have to do with what's here? And they're not Christian Bible movies. It's just.
This is towards the end of the book, right?
No.
Or is this kind of in the middle?
This is in the middle.
Yeah, you'll
then
start
they just
seeing a lot of
wholesale
this
cite. They just wholesale cite Windsor. Here's an example where they just wholesale
from
cite.
Babylon to Timber 2.
Let me put us both on the same
From
side
Palestine.
here.
He breaking origin. Was he breaking origin? Oh, was it now?
Huh? What are you saying?
I like how he does the same thing that Windsor does. We know the consensus is, or upon further review, it's been determined. It's like, you can't say that kind of stuff and assert it. You have to prove it. 'Cause right there, the population of Carthage was derived from Palestine, and its civilization was Hebraic in origin. Oh, was it now?
Yeah. Like, what's the evidence for that? 'Cause
Okay, where's the evidence for that?
The evidence is the opposite about what Carthage actually was, and that doesn't even prove the thesis anyway. So it's silly.
No, not even close.
So they're putting Windsor in there, but it's crazy because in a recent video that was re-released that was like 11 years old, Nathanyel was saying the only reason dumb people, this is what he was saying about them, these dumb people believe that Japheth is the progenitor to the Europeans is because they read it in Windsor's book. And he was saying that's all they did. He said they thought that was deep research. But notice the reason why they're saying Carthage is supposedly from Hebraic origin is just because of Windsor's book. The inconsistency is just not there.
But I think they're trying to get Israelites. I'm sorry. They're just trying to get. What he's trying to do is trying to segue from Assyria into Africa so we can get to the transatlantic. That's what he's doing. But we got to get him We got to get him. Logically, we have to play with our audience, get them convinced that they had to come to Africa. Blah 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 blah.
Well, from
that's what I see the argument being.
Well, so everyone should understand when you had 70 AD and then 135 AD, it is true that the people there went all over, including into northern Africa primarily. But that's not the only place they went, by the way. And there's no evidence it was 1 million. That's different than going into West Africa. That's different than mingling with the local populations and forgetting your identity. And that's different than saying they didn't, because that means they also went into Europe, by the way. They also went into Europe, by the way. And so it's like you can't say, well, they went here, and so they're the real ones, but they went over here, but they're not the real ones. See, it just doesn't work. But this is the kind of stuff they do. So here's another example where they have Windsor here, and this is where they, I believe, get the whole million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. This is from Windsor. It has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecuted slavery. The slave markets are full of black Jewish slaves. So that's Rudolph Windsor who said that. So I have never seen any primary source that says 1 million Jews, because he says it's been estimated. Who estimated? You can't just say it's been estimated. You have to show who. Here's the thing, though. When you read about how many people were in Jerusalem from Titus and Josephus, now they don't agree on the number, but the number itself, Titus is like 600,000. I think Josephus says there may have been 1 million people in Jerusalem.
Maybe.
So there's the divergence. But no, that's in Jerusalem is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't have every single one flee into Africa. First of all, they went to multiple places. So there's multiple problems here. And there's no source that says slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. That's Windsor just saying that. So it's just saying it. It's just crazy. Garfield's here. He's saying Josephus said 1.1 million died. So again, that would be different, everyone. That would be radically different than saying that 1 million went into Africa. So it's just example after example.
A mass migration of like a whole nation going into West Africa with literally no trace. That's things myths are built on,
Oh, King G is here. Totally off topic. Malone, I bet you won't debate Deacon. I thought he was a priest now from Genesis. Actually, I have talked to him, I would say, 3 to 5 months ago, and I would debate him, and I'll tell you the topic I proposed to him. Does Hakah have biblical warrant to have the title priest? That's what I want to debate him on. Does Hakah have biblical warrant to, and you could make it shorter. You could just say it like this. Is Hakah a priest? That's what I would want to debate him on. Priest. And King G, let me know if he will debate if he's a priest, because that's really fundamental, isn't it? Wouldn't that be fundamental if he's saying that he is a priest? Wouldn't it be kind of fundamental to be able to demonstrate that you should have that title? So I don't know who you are, but I would not be having a problem debating him. Just need to set it up. Maybe you can help make that happen. Is a priest? Great topic. Okay.
Garfield, it's $4 on Kindle. He's asking if it's free on Kindle. It's just $4 download.
Yeah. And then they saw at Windsor again there, and then they've got some interesting things I want to ask about. So towards the end of the book, there's sort of a timeline given. This is I'm trying to explain where it is on a Kindle edition. It's kind of tricky.
It's different.
The percentage mark, but here it's interesting because they have a little history of the school, of the old One West school, and so I found that interesting. And notice first of all what they say. They call it ISUPK. At least they got the Israeli right. Now they did call it ISUPK for a while, but the name longer was ICUPK.
ICUPK.
And I don't think it's quite accurate to say that he founded it. Now he was one of them, but Bibbins is
one
really
of the seven
the
heads,
founder.
right?
And then he had, of course, Peter Sherrod was the elder out of the original founders of the school. Maybe he's just talking about when the name was changed, but it's not really clear. But it says was chosen to carry on the teachings in Abba Bivens in Abba Bivens' place with Peter James Sherrod, aka Yaquab.
Yeah.
So that is there's some debate about that, but nonetheless, it's interesting to have the little bit of perspective there. And then here's what's fascinating. First of all, notice how the type changes from entry to entry. Look what this says. Jesse, can you read this?
Weird. Original ISUPK split and dissolved due to Roman Catholic Jesuit influence. What? I thought it was over money and power.
Well, I think that's the obvious
Control,
truth.
leadership.
They're saying that Roman Catholic Jesuits paid off some of the leadership to get them to flip.
So what's the story with that? I know it's not true, but
they tell the story about a blank check being written.
The blank check. There you go.
You got a blank check.
Check.
This is crazy. Like, don't you think you'd want evidence for some claim like that? And also, by the way, let's just say this is true. If the original school of the people that taught Nathanyel could be dissolved and infiltrated by Roman Catholic Jesuit influence, how do we know his organization is not falling under the same machinations?
The lack of consistency, that's what it is.
And if that's true, why would you want to hold on to the teachings of people who could be fooled by Jesuit influence and be tricked? That's your teachers?
Yeah.
You see
everything's some Jesuit plot. Yeah, it's just conspiracy stuff, man.
But no evidence is given, of course. Then they basically make themselves the continuation of the original school.
Yeah, of course.
2003, Bishop Nathanyel Ben Israel established IUIC with the help of, he names all the deacons and the captains and the officers, and they put their pictures in there. And then it goes on. So they're kind of like the guys. They have the guy from Phoenix there. That's I forgot his name is Isaac or something. That's the Phoenix camp leader.
He's hanging in there.
I call him Captain Token. I call him Captain Token.
Yeah.
That's Captain Token right there, because they got to be like, look, Hispanics too. Look.
See, yeah, we're not racist.
Then, can you read this, Jesse?
The Bible prophesies an awakening of our 12 tribes of Israel. The valley in Ezekiel 37 is the United States of America. Asserted what? This is where the awakening begins.
So if you read Ezekiel 37, there's a valley there of dry bones, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're saying that's the United States of America.
Silicon Valley? What valley are they talking about in the States? Silicon Valley?
No, they're saying the valley itself represents the USA.
Sure. Yeah, sure it does.
I mean, I just want the audience to see this. Like, imagine reading Ezekiel 37 and saying that. But guess what? Windsor's other book is called In the Valley of Dry Bones. Windsor promotes that same idea. This is a common Hebrew Israelite thing.
Have you read that?
Yeah, I've read all of the Valley of Dry Bones.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, I think I have a review of it in the back of my Obama book. I have a review in the back of it. Okay, then we've got, hold on here. Okay, I want to show you. Can you read this phrase right here?
Yeah, where also our Lord was crucified, America is spiritually Jerusalem because they crucified his image and teachings. Hold on. America's like 5 different places
They're saying America's all over the Bible. So if you read Revelation,
oh my goodness.
It talks about, it says it was the witnesses, this is like Revelation 13, they'll be dealt with in the place where the Lord was crucified. And it says spiritually Jerusalem. America's not mentioned in there. Or it calls this place spiritually Egypt. Sorry, rather.
Right,
but it says outside the place
Egypt,
where he was crucified. So if you're taking it literally, it's saying that Jerusalem is like corrupt Egypt, and it says the place where he was crucified, which would be Jerusalem. They skip all that and take it as, well, his image was crucified. Well, hold on. Iconoclasm happened in Europe. And that's where all these paintings came from originally. So now what they would say, but America's an extension of Europe. That's what they would try to say. You can always see where they're going to try to go, but it's super goofy. Now, ultimately, you could take this as, in its most literal sense, Revelation 13 there, when it's talking about 2 witnesses, would have to be Jerusalem. I take it as a sense of it's a way to describe, it's the same way the Bible uses Babylon to describe the world's wicked system outside of Christ. And so ultimately, it's basically saying, because it's obvious it's applying things from other things to describe a system, because it says spiritually Egypt. So it's basically saying this world that crucified Jesus, which is spiritually like Egypt. That's the way I take it. But if you wanted to be more literal, you'd have to make it only Jerusalem. You could never make it America on any interpretation, any kind of valid way. But that's just something that, this is, by the way, this is not an IUIC original. This is what one Westers always be saying about this passage. They say, well, that's where the Lord is spiritually crucified. I've had multiple discussions about this.
Seal of America, what do you say? The seal of America is the pyramid on the dollar bill. Isn't that Nation of Islam
about
stuff?
The eagle, too, as if America was the only one with the eagle.
That's Nation of Islam, ain't it?
So then we got Bivens mentioned again, but I just want to tell everyone his last name is actually not Bivens. It's so crazy that we had to discover, myself, Abu, and a couple other gentlemen, that Bivens' real name is Bibbins. They had only been hearing it and never actually saw it. His name was Edward Meredith Bibbins. It's not Bibbins. And I gave the evidence in my Bibbins documentary I did in February. You definitely need to watch that. I give the proof. His name is Edward Meredith Bibbins. It's not Abba Bivens. Now, I understand Abba, that would be the nickname anyway, but his last name is not Bivens. It's Bibbins. They're still getting it wrong. Now, it's sort of taken on the status as a nickname, but it's crazy they don't even know the name of their own teacher. You know? They never have.
Bibbins, okay.
Yeah, Bivens is actually Bibbins. Now, they don't go into this, but look what they say about Revelation 11:11. After 3 days and a half.
350 years.
They're saying that 3 days and a half is 350 years. So they're trying to tie it in with the date when they woke up, because look what it says. The spirit of life from God entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them. This is their translation or their interpretation. The Holy Spirit of God is entering us, and we stand as the 12 tribes of Israel, keeping the commandments. Because remember, they associate spirit with law. So they're saying Revelation 11:11 is about waking up of people in America.
So they were woken up when? In 03 when IUIC started?
1969.
Or 69?
They believe the date 1969 is prophesied in the Bible.
Why wouldn't they even argue that detail? I mean...
Hey, you don't have the Spirit of God. He wasn't giving you understand, Esau.
Yeah, it's not for you. It's not for you.
This isn't your book by your people.
This isn't your
Why
book.
would you even think you could pick up our book and understand it and dare question us, the prophets who have come back from old?
Keep your dirty hands off my book.
Now, this also includes a new 12 tribes of Israel chart, which we analyzed first in that book, and no one has recognized what a big deal this is within their spectrum, because they are revising their own religion as we speak. We are watching them make it up as we go. The 12 tribes of Israel, it used to just say Judah, American blacks. Now it's the Igbo, the Ashanti, Sudanese. And this is part of why Ron Dalton's kind of upset, because they're kind of ripping off his whole thing.
Yeah,
he doesn't have Latinos and indigenous peoples, but he's always had these people groups and been saying, now he's not the only one, other sort of Pan-African type Israelites have as well. But they're ripping off the non-One West section of Israelism
yes, they are.
While keeping the 12 tribes chart. It's a mess, and that's why they can't tell you who the descendants of
Jacob are. They like the
fall.
nuance of it, right? They like the nuance of that. They can play with it a little more.
I don't know what you mean by nuance. There ain't no nuance, bro. They're opening.
I'm saying
they're opening the drawer and just throwing everybody in the drawer. Now everybody's an Israelite.
Right.
Igbos,
so they can go to more pseudo books, right?
Sudan, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Dominica. Benjamin is Jamaica, Bahamas, Trinidad, Tobago, Virgin Islands. Now that's basically been relatively consistent throughout One West history. Levi, Haitians, Hassals, Malawi, Zambia, Limba. That's new.
Yeah, that's new.
They're adding the Limba, who live in Zimbabwe and South Africa, to Levi, the Haitians. Ephraim, Puerto Ricans, Yorubas. Now, the reason why they're doing that is they're trying to tie in Santeria from where it comes from. And they're drawing from syncretism of Roman Catholicism and Yoruba. That's why they're tying that in. It's such a cheap, easy connection because it ain't no connection.
Yeah.
Manasseh still says Cubans. It's funny. You have Judah being all these groups. Manasseh's still just the Cubans. Simeon's still just the Dominicans. So not everyone's getting expanded. Zebulon, Guatemala to Panama. By the way, notice how it switches from mainly from like a lot of ethnic groups to geographical regions. Then now so Gad bizarre. Is not just Native Americans. It's also Ga and the Biafra. Reuben is still the loneliest one of all, simply the Seminoles. By the way, the Seminoles are a conglomerate of other groups that ran into the South, specifically Florida. And so they're not even an actual tribe that existed prior to European incursion. So it's bonkers to say that they exist distinctly because they themselves are a conglomerate of numerous groups, including groups that would have to be included in Gad, like the Muskegee, Asher's, Columbia, Turuge, Kikiyu, Issachar Mexicans, Naphtali. This is where it really gets crazy. Argentina, Chile,
this is
Zulus.
Wow. What?
Xhosa, Basotha, the Swati, the Nebi, and the Pacific Islands. So Hawaiians, Zulu, and people in Chile are all Naphtali.
They're all one tribe. Like that makes sense. Because science, right? Because,
now check this out. I'll show you some more of the anti-Semitism here. Having addressed the persistent challenges faced by black people in America, I would like to turn our attention to the struggles of the Palestinians. By the way, they think Palestinians are going to be enslaved.
Of course, they don't care.
They're just going to enslave them, so it's not like they care about them. Children of Ishmael in another part of the world. By drawing parallels between different marginalized groups, this will show the common denominator of oppression by the world's common enemy. Can you guess who?
Edomites.
Specifically, the Amalekites.
The Amaleks. Amalek, of course. The ultimate villain.
This is crazy. If you're a Gen X kid, you remember Ronald Reagan talking about Star Wars, and not George Lucas's movie, but a planetary defense shield which was designed to shoot down incoming Soviet ballistic missiles. But UFO researchers, that's an oxymoron, like jumbo shrimp or government organization or military intelligence, they're saying this, read this. In fact, Star Wars was only a public cover for its real mission, shooting starships out of the heavens in order to retro-engineer its foreign technology. Starships from heaven? The Bible says this is about the second coming of Christ. They're saying America knows the black angels in the UFO chariots are going to come destroy it. So Reagan was trying to design a defense system to shoot down the black angels manning the chariots. That's what they're saying in this book.
Yeah. I think you're getting into that part where he starts talking about UFO sightings and stuff like that. Yeah, it's in there. It's all in there,
One of the craziest part of the book is where it says that NASA got to the moon by the occult power.
You can't take this seriously. Come on.
Memo. Whenever they say memo, it's saying they're adding a little line to something that's quoted. Having watched the protests on various networks, no protesters call for the genocide of Khazar Jewish people. This is more media propaganda. That's just simply a lie. If you've seen the videos of, for example, at the airport, people chasing down Jewish passengers, it's just, and the stuff that they say, it's just a lie.
All this to justify hatred and to just prove you're the Israelites. Just really going out of their way, aren't they? Man,
the essential point is that these Ashkenazim, the Jewry of Eastern Europe, and the prime victims of Hitler's Holocaust were descendants of Khazar tribes people. They were converts to Judaism. By the way, let's just say that's true. Who converted them? Under their own reckoning, it would be actual Israelites. That means their ancestors, according to their reckoning, believe that you could convert into Israelism. If this is true.
It's been
my point is they don't think that. So they would just say, our ancestors are going off there, and look what it cost us. They have no historical or genetic connection with the biblical Jews of Palestine at all. It's just not true. They're saying with the CMH, this has been shown. This was known among themselves. So he's like, they all knew. And among the more astute Jewish and non-Jewish historians and linguists from at least 1700 AD, it was a well-known, if disguised and ignore fact of life from 1850 onward.
Where's the citations? There's just no...
Hey, look at this. This is funny. Most of what we Gentiles in North America consider to be Jewish, and most of what even the Ashkenazim immigrants into North America consider to be Jewish, is not Jewish at all. Now, if they're saying that some of this stuff is not from the Bible, that's true. But I want to show how the two can play at this game. Watch. The Hasidic sidewalks, the skull cap, yarmulke, the rabbis' fur trim hats, and kaftans, gefilte fish, none of that is Jewish. Purple and gold, capes, black boots, cargo pants, military chants, none of that is Hebrew.
Right.
English,
Trap beats,
none of that is Hebrew.
Yeah.
It's all Khazar. It reflects traditions of steppe tribesmen who never had anything to do with biblical Hebrews or Judaism. That's not even true. Last thing I'm going to show is when they get into Kessler's book.
Oh, yeah, here we go. This is wild.
And even look what it says. It's only saying it would be relevant to Ashkenazim. That's all. Because he's not even talking about other Jews, number one, and he's not saying everybody. But what's crazy is what they say happened to him. That's what's crazy. Look at this. So Kessler, this is the author of 13th Tribe, who they're saying he proved that the Jews were fakes. 1976, Kessler was mysteriously diagnosed. Why is it mysterious? With Parkinson's disease, and in 1979 with terminal leukemia. On March 1st, 1983, Kessler and his wife Cynthia unbelievably died of suicide. Notice the boldface. That's what they're saying in the review, how that's the way they try to prove a point. Together at their London home by swallowing lethal quantities of barbiturate-based tuna capsules. Look at this. Here's what I wanted to show you. What's that say?
Sounds like the workings of Mossad agents.
They're saying Mossad, the Israeli intelligence agency, assassinated Kessler.
For bringing this out.
Yes, that's what they're saying.
Wow.
Jesse, you have a couple pages left to finish of this book?
I have a lot, but man, isn't that just fascinating? What do we have here, though? That's just
propaganda.
Yeah, I have a really for. Do you want to hear the comic relief? Is that the one you're talking about?
You want to finish the show with this?
Yeah, this is great. You're gonna love this. If I can find it,
find out.
You guys will love this. Where is it? Man, that's such a crazy book, though. I mean, let's see here. I might have. Let me get this tab real quick.
I'm just looking through you guys' comments real quick here. So we're not telling you to not buy this book.
Read it.
Yeah, we're telling you to get this book and read it. We are never afraid of any information, and I would put that in quotes if I wasn't messing around with the mouse reading your comments right now. We're not ever afraid of any information by any Hebrews-like group, and neither should you be. I hope you're a critical thinker. I hope maybe you had some, it would help maybe if you had some advanced education. I don't mean doctoral work, but graduate high school, maybe taking like a couple college classes or even online classes, self-improvement classes. That'll help you a little bit. But nonetheless, if you watch this show and find out if what we're saying is accurate and then read it, that'll help you. But I think a thoughtful adult should be able to see the problems with this. And so we're not telling you not to get it. I want all Christians to get this book and go through it and analyze it. Now, here's the thing. The point of this is not to say, oh, look, ha, 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 ha. Only obviously we got to have some fun with it. It's bonkers. You guys don't understand that this still, in a way, marks an advancement of what One West is doing. Back in the day, it was just Yeshaya pointing his nails at Louis Theroux for a BBC documentary. Then you had these little pamphlet booklets that they put out. They're very difficult to find anymore. I'm talking about the old school that Nathanyel and Tahar and Johanna and Jermaine Grant all came out of. Then that whole time, though, the main sort of work that they would have to pull out and read from was from Babylon to Timbuktu. I've even seen videos of Rakah. He's from the old school, too, of GOCC, having his reader pull this out and read it live, and they would do read, and they would treat it that way.
Yeah.
Nathanyel, when he did his video on Babylon to Timbuktu, the pages were falling out of it. It had been used so much. Because it was sort of like this plus this, and the red Apocrypha with a KJV Bible. That's the One West starter pack. And
That's the starter pack.
I'm not joking. I'm saying, let me get the Apocrypha. I'll show you. Jesse, have you found that yet?
You know what? No, but I don't. I think it would be in bad taste. I think we've had enough laughs. I'm gonna be more respectful on this. I think I want to have it. I want to have more replay value, and me sitting here, it was kind of a mockumentary. But so I'm gonna put it up though as a review on the book on Amazon. But yeah.
So historically, this plus a KJV has been the One West starter pack.
That's the starter pack, yes, sir.
Now what I'm saying is IUIC is trying to replace this with their work because it's an expanded sort of updated version of this. Honestly, From Babylon to Timbuktu is better because it's shorter and more concise. And even though it's bonkers, you can at least follow what he's trying to argue. And he does cite more sources, even though he doesn't cite nearly enough and he does misuse them. It is a superior work. But this one has AI images. I didn't even show. There's like a bunch of AI images in this book. And it's like, I guess it's fancier or something.
It's got a movement behind it. That's what's going on.
That's not what they say. What are you talking about? That's not what they say. Not what who says, King G. Is he still here? Did he get timed out?
I have not paid attention to the live chat, but trying to find where the end of his book.
A.S. Roddy says most intelligent people don't take the cult seriously. Well, it depends what you mean by that. So I've been doing a lot of study and research on people who join cults, and it's a common thing to understand them as less intelligent. And the research has shown the profile of the average cult member that's actually not true. Now, it may be truer with some of the newer cults, especially in their more formative years, but as they go on and be established and stuff like that, the evidence doesn't indicate that that's quite the issue. Now, here's the thing. IUIC is pretty middle class. I don't think a lot of people realize, and even upper middle class to an extent, and that means stability, and that means money. Yep. And these groups aren't merely just meeting intellectual needs. That's sort of the pseudo surface level, meeting emotional and moral needs, unfortunately. Now, it doesn't meet the real needs, but that's just what's going on. But you have one other thing you wanted to say, Jesse?
I was trying to find that, but I can't find it. I wanted to read this part right here, and I think that was pretty interesting in the book. It kind of encapsulates, it's a certain need for people that are reading this book. Do you mind? It's on the. It's like the last page of the book. He says, I remember back between 1992 and 1994, myself and Bishop Yawasop would go down, and he's kind of just after his whole entire book, after all the stuff he's talking about, he just kind of goes into this, this monologue here. He's like, I remember back between 1992 and 1994. Put it on the screen,
but go ahead.
Yeah, myself and Bishop Yawasop would go to downtown Manhattan and visit a used bookstore named Strand's. Excellent store for used and old books. Very few black people frequented this store, but anyway, we would go to the Jewish book section or the medieval book section or the Russian book section, and we would once in a while be questioned by an employee. Hi, can I help you guys? As if we were lost. It's a common question, I'm sure, meant to help, but it was followed by, maybe you're in the wrong book, the wrong book section, perhaps. You'd like the African-American book section, and we'd say, no, we're in the right book section. We know that in the African-American book section, the only book there were books on slavery, books on the right to vote, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, the NAACP, the Martin Luther King Jr.'s, and the Frederick Douglasses. But if you want the real history books, you must go to the medieval or the Jewish book section. We take the books off the shelves and show the workers, the black people who ruled throughout Europe, for over 1,000 years. We flip through the pages, and they would get shocked at all the black paintings and walk away from us. Were they shocked because they didn't know, or that Negroes found out the truth? your guess is as good as mine. It's like, what is this? You know, the historical narrative of our black and brown people held captive by a succession of dominant empires, including Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Media, Greece, Rome, and Spain, culminating in the United States of America, encapsulates a poignant tale of endurance amidst adversity. Throughout the annals of time, these powerful empires subjected people of color to enslavement, exploitation, and systemic disenfranchisement, perpetuating cycles of oppression and struggle. By analyzing the impactful events tied to significant dates, compelling historical quotes, and biblical prophecies that eerily mirror present-day realities, almost as if it's anachronistic, a compelling case emerges regarding the identification of black and brown individuals as the 12 tribes of Israel. This comprehensive narrative, he calls it, captures the collective experiences and enduring legacy of our people. I am grateful to God Almighty for granting me the opportunity to share my humble insights and understanding with each and it just, how do you, just reading that, you're just like, all personal. And we talked about the Christian church, as you guys are just so emotional. It's all about the Christian church being emotional and experience. And what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? What does that have to do with your book? You went to the library and understood that these books, you know what I mean? It's just, what is this? Is that how we end our historical?
Yes.
That's the concern. That's the trouble. And I don't think they're going to stop writing books. I think they're going to get more and more out there. There might be a volume 2. I don't know, Assyria to what? Peru or whatever. Egypt to Peru. There's so many things they can do with it.
Yeah,
just a weird ending to a book.
No, IUIC is not going away anytime soon. Yeah. So I think.
I don't think so.
Fascinating. So here we've got Byron Bull says, well, Russia icons do say Israel was black. Okay, Byron, let me help you out. This is, with all due respect,
wasn't in there.
This is kind of a dumb argument for a few reasons. One is, are you saying that paintings or images from later dates about biblical figures are accurate and we should take them as they are because they're telling the truth? If that's the case, then would that mean they're also white? This is why you got to have consistent methodology. If you're going to say, hey, these are whitewashed, but look at these images, they're proving that they're, well, wait, why one and not the other? That's the first problem. Also, if iconoclasm was designed to get rid of all the black images and this is trying to be hidden from everybody, why would there be Russian icons that are black, if that's true? And when you get these books with the Russian icons, this is one that they use sometimes, Treasures of Russian Art of the 11th and 16th century, M.V. Alpatov. Do the Russian icons, do they say that they're black? You see what I'm saying? What you guys do when they get these is they take certain pages and be like, oh, look, but it's not everybody. It's not all of them. And so what do you do with that? You can't just tell me, well, it says they were black. Because, do you understand? So you're saying that, but you really need to ask yourself, is that correct? Is that accurate? I mean, I don't know. Is that?
Yeah, it's a liturgical thing. And know the context of what icons even are. They're not self-portrayals as if the apostles and Jesus are sitting there and they're painting them. This has to do with liturgical tradition.
I'm not saying that these are accurate. I'm saying these people came way after and they have no idea how they looked. That's what I'm saying. They would have no idea how they looked. So here's these icons. So usually what they're talking about is they're talking about selected images that they've seen from the book Russian Icons. That's what he's talking about. But I almost bet you, Byron Bull, you don't have a copy of Russian Icons, and I bet you haven't looked through all of it. And if you did look through all of it, you would see a bunch of images that don't agree with your assessment. Now, this is not the Russian Icon books, but this is another one they use that also includes Russian Icons. So, no, not really. And by the way, let's just say, Byron, that the Russian Icons did show that those folks were black. Let's just say that. And somehow that accurately reflected that Moses, who was, there way before, somehow it actually reflected Moses' actual phenotype. Let's just say that all happened, okay? So we're granting huge swaths of the argument, okay? So follow along. Let's just say that's all true. How would that prove people in America are black? I mean, people who are black in America are Israelites. It wouldn't. Even if you granted all that, it still wouldn't prove it. So a lot of problems there, a lot of problems there. But, Jesse, one more final time, tell people where to find you and what you got going on.
Yes, you can find me at the Reassembling on all the digital landscapes except Instagram. I'm at jesse.walsh.4090 as well as Jesse Walsh on Facebook. We are wrapping up the Women of the Bible series on our channel, and we're going to start going into the transmission of the text, because I think that's very important. And you see that across the spectrum of the idea of what was canonized. How do we know what we have in our hands is the Word of God? How did that text develop? Get compiled? What did the early church have? I think those are very important things. When we can articulate that in the layman's sense, I think that's important. It's a good witness to our testimony. So
real quick, so Byron quotes First Maccabees, the Apocrypha 348, and tries to say, oh no, look, they take white Jesus images, First Maccabees 348. Byron Bull, it doesn't say that, number one. Number two, Dinu, do you have the link to the show that I did with BK Apologist? Shout out to Alfredo Valentin on First Maccabees 348 and show how that's not even what it's saying at all. And now I see you quote it, and laid open the book of the law where the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. Notice how that doesn't say what you said it said, and there's questions about that translation. But instead of dealing with what I just showed, because notice I just answered your Russian icons show their black argument. Notice how you're now saying, oh, they've all been whitewashed. Well, then how can black Russian icons prove the point if they've been whitewashed? You see what I'm saying? There's no methodology. And then, well, so who is Israel? So asking that question as if that fixes the argument. It's just, you got to do better, Byron. You really need to do better. I'm not trying to shame you. Notice how we haven't blocked you, even though, you're an Israelite and you usually don't agree with us. It's not about that. It's about you thinking at a higher level and being willing to challenge your presuppositions, no matter how comfortable they make you feel, or what you've previously believed, to believe the truth. With that, we end the show. Come back next time on Street Apologists Live, where we serve the underserved and look into the overlook. Thank you, Jesse, for being here. God